Shabbat Shalom. Happy Sabbath. This morning we would like to look at the subject, the shepherd king and the maiden. The shepherd king and the maiden, and we will use Shirashirim, that's the Song of Songs, as a periscope to look at that shepherd king and his maiden. Some people, when they read the book of Song of Song, they say it's an allegory. But it seemed to me very much that it is analogous to something more divine. An allegory meaning that we're seeking for a deeper meaning, whereas something that is analogous, it is analogous to something else. That is something like human love is analogous to divine love. That's what we hope to learn from this book. And so, in a sense, we are going to analyze the analogy. We're going to analyze it and see if we can make sense of it. Come with me to chapter 1, Shirashirim. The Song of Songs, which is Shalomah, that's Solomon. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. For fragrance, your oils are good. Your name is oil poured forth. Therefore, the young woman love you. Draw me. We run after you. The sovereign has brought me into the inner rooms. We exalt and rejoice in you. We praise your love more than wine. Rightly do they love you. I am dark, but lovely. O daughters of Jerusalem, like the tents of Adar, like the curtains of Shalaman, do not look up on me because I am dark, because the sun has tanned me. My mother's sons were displeased with me. They make me the keeper of the vineyards, my own vineyards, and I had not kept. Make known to me, O ye whom he brings love, he being love, where you feed your flock. Where do you feed your flock? Now, I believe that this book is perhaps one of the most difficult to comprehend, because it is not too easy to ascertain exactly who is who. Instantly, we recognize that there is a sovereign, there is a king. Some theologians have reasoned that the book speaks of two men, King Solomon being one and the shepherd being another, both of whom are suitors vying for the affections of this young lady, this genteel bronze Shulamite maiden. So that's what some people say. She is regarded with affection, but she has this residual ambivalence, which swings giddily when you're young. from one emotional extreme to the other for the king and for the shepherd. So the conflict between the Shumelite passionate fascination for the king, whom she refers to as my beloved. As you go through the book, you'll see she refers to him as my beloved, and he refers to her as my love. So you then know who is, in fact, is speaking. Now, and her complaint, so we're juxtaposing the tension that she has between her passion for the king and the complaint she has made about her brothers who had her work in a vineyard so as she could not attend to her own vineyard. And so the sun scorched her, and she's now making it known to the others, daughters of Jerusalem, don't look on me because of my color, but I am lovely, and I'm in love with this man. Now, the thing is this, her voice is passively heard in the music of her love. You can hear it. But it is actively seen in the drama of her operatic experience, because the whole thing comes, it's almost Shakespearean in terms of what's happening here. We have a young man and a young lady in love. That's what we are observing. And the word wants to let us know this is analogous to divine love. So watch it, how it unfolds to us. But as you read this book, if you were to do so without a sanctified mind, you would be at risk of it becoming a crude encounter with love. It is very sensuous. And Yah wants us to know that that's how he made man. And therefore, sex was not supposed to be had outside of marriage. And so what we observe is that, and certainly as a counselor, as a marriage counselor, I see this, that many husbands and wives have brought into their relationships vivid thoughts of premarital experiences and with other people outside of their marriage before they were married. And those thoughts sometimes taint the marriage and ruins the marriage before it even began, because oftentimes in intimate moments, they are thinking of other people that they had spent time with rather than the one with whom they are married. That's why the Bible is so adamant that we ought not to be promiscuous and sleep around in the days when we are giddy. And that's what we're getting out of the book here of Solomon. We don't want to validate our marriage by the way we lived before. But for some people, those earlier thoughts invade the mind and provoke thoughts that shouldn't come to us. You can understand why Paul is saying, the things I don't want to do, they come so liberally. And the things I don't want to do, these things come liberally. But the things I want to do, they're not so liberal. Oh, wretched man. So he looks at himself and he sees this tension, this contradiction. And we are seeing that in the book here. We're seeing that because as you read the writings of Solomon in this canon that we have, you can see he wrote this this poem when he was young. He was a young man and he's in love. And many of us have been there. And some of the things you say when you're young, when you grow up, you wouldn't say them or you wouldn't do them. So you know by the Song of Songs, he wrote this as a young man. And then when he wrote the book of Proverbs, he was perhaps a middle-aged man. And he's warning his son, don't do as I did. Make sure that you take notice of the Torah, the law of Yah. And by the time he gets to Ecclesiastes, he's letting you know, remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come, and you will say, I have no pleasure in them, when your hands begin to shake, the keeper of the house, and you have far less teeth now than when you did then. Those days, he says, remember, son, and don't do as I did when I was young. That's what he wants us to know. And so the king here is quite alluring. And so the scene in chapter 1 here, it opens with a kind of adolescent's emotional repertoire. You know, when you're young and you're in love, and it seems to chime with the choreography of contemporary world. We see young kids in the school in love, and that's how they behave. And so that's what we're seeing here, a kind of adolescent thinking. So at first glance, the king woos the Shumalite woman, according to chapter 1, to whom she's very attracted. And some say she's also attracted to the shepherd because they think it's two different men vying for her affection. And so some have concluded that the king and the shepherd are not the same person. Not the same person. And still, one gets the distinct impression that Solomon is the only suitor in this drama here, surrounded by beautiful women called the daughters of Jerusalem. And the man, he's a man who he has the habit, he's habituated to finer things of life, but he has an aberrant, unquenched, sensuous appetite. That's what we're dealing with here, with Solomon. 700 wives and 300 concubines, and the man is a literary genius. Because when we read in the book of Kings, chapter 4, that's First King, we're told that he wrote 300 poems and 1,005 songs. So we're just reading one of these songs this morning. That's how literary the man was. And you don't have to conjecture why it would be easy for a young lady, a maiden, to fall in love with him, because he is king. He is king. But as I look at the story, I see a prophetic look. It is about a relationship between the Messiah and his assembly. The woman whom he likens to a comely and delicate woman. Therein, as I read the Song of Songs, I am inclined to view this book under two complementary, imperceptible dimensions. First, as the divine scripture in which the nuptials of marriage are usually played out, the bride is here presented in the Maiden, and the husband is Solomon. So I conclude that it is not two suitors, but the king and the shepherd are the same person. Think of it this way. The king lives in Jerusalem, but we're told in chapter 8 he has a vineyard over there at the foot of Mount Hermon. He tends it out. Think of it this way, in that we have the monarch in England. He lives in Buckingham. We know that. That's where the palace is. But he goes sometimes to Highgrove House, his country house, to spend time. The Queen used to go to Sandringham Estate. And sometimes they go to Balmoral in Scotland to spend time. This is what we're reading here, that Solomon he lives in Jerusalem, but he has a vineyard. And this maiden was working there. She doesn't know who he is. So she met him one day and fell in love with him, and he fell in love with her. But he doesn't tell her who he is. She thinks something else. And as you read it, it is not too difficult to see why some people think that there are two people here, but it's one. Because it's analogous to the king who is a shepherd. You heard what David said, because David was a king shepherd, and so is Yeshua, and he's coming to set up David's kingdom, David's tabernacle. And so it's the same person. So join me now in chapter 2. I am the rose of Sharon, the lily of the valleys, like a lily among thorns. So is my love among the daughters. See, he refers to her as his love, my love. Like an apple tree among the trees of the forest, so is my beloved. So you see this every time she says, my beloved, and he says, my love. So you know who indeed is speaking. Strengthen me with the raisin cakes, refresh me with the apples, for I am faint with love. His left hand is under my head, and his right hand embraces me. I have put you under oath, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles of the does of the field. Do not stir up nor awaken love until it pleases. The voice of my beloved, see, he is coming, leaping on the mountains, skipping in the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle. You can see this giddiness, isn't it? In the adolescent stage of life, that's where he was when he wrote this book. When two people are in love. And that's how it should be, because and intended it to be. But he encased it in the oath of marriage. It was never supposed to be outside, because it's telling us of the purity of intimacy between a husband and a wife. And we're seeing that here. But we want to look at the situation in a wider context. So come with me to the book of Jeremiah chapter 2. Jeremiah chapter 2. And we will see how this thing unfolds prophetically. Jeremiah chapter 2. The word says that Yah here is speaking as one who is jilted. Moreover, the word of Yah came to me, saying, go and cry in the ears of Jerusalem, saying, thus saith Yah, I remember thee, the kindness of thy youth. Are you with me? The kindness of thy youth, the love of thine espousal, when thou wentest after me in the wilderness, in the land that was not sown. So we're seeing here, we just read in chapter 1 and a part of chapter 2, this maiden seeking after the king, Solomon. And so, as I said earlier, it is analogous to the relationship that Yah has with Israel. And so we are picking that up now. And so we are threading it through the eye of that needle. So we can stitch the bits together so that you can see the full garment that we need to wear. So Yah is saying to Israel, when you were young and when we were exposed together, you loved me. You were doing all right. Israel was holiness unto Yah and the first fruit of his increase. You were like unto him a tithe, your increase. All that devour him shall offend. Evil shall come upon them, saith Yah. Hear ye the word of Yah, O house of Jacob, and all the families of the house of Israel. Thus saith Yah, what iniquity have your father found in me? Notice what he's saying. He said, when you were young and you were in love, you loved me. I could see that. That was demonstrable. I could see that. I would come in and you would fix the table and we would grace it and we would eat food together and we would share conversation. But now, you're not the same. You're not the same. He's talking to the church, to the assembly, Israel. He's saying you're not the same. So he wants to know, what is it that he has done to his father, why we, the descendant, are treating him that way? Thus said Yah, what iniquity have your fathers found in me, that they are gone far from me, and have walked after vanity, and have become what? Vain. Tell me, he's asking them. Am I guilty, he says? Neither said they, where is he? Now, you get that in verse 6? It means Yeshua has gone, the Spirit is gone, but even the priests, they don't know. The leaders are preaching, they're teaching, but the Spirit has left the church and they don't know. He said, neither said they, where is Yah that brought us up out of Egypt, that led us through the wilderness, through a land of deserts and of pits, through a land of drought and of shadows of death, through a land that no man passes through, and where no man dwells. And I brought you into what? Plentiful country to eat the fruits thereof. And he wants to know. Verse 8 says, the priest said not even the priest, where is Yah? They don't ask. Yah has become a convenience. They only call upon him in convenience times. And they that handled the law knew me not. Are you with me? The ones who are teaching others the law, the Torah, he said they don't even know him. They knew me not. The pastors also transgressed against me, and the prophets prophesied by Baal, and walk after things that do not profit. That's what we were talking about to some extent this morning, that we have these groups of people in places we call church. And each, rather than relying upon the patent company, they have made themselves a church all by themselves. And so they preach doctrine that are not cogent to the text of the word. And so when they do that, the church, which is considered to be a woman who is comely, is then seen through the eyes of the word as one who has reneged upon her oath in marriage. That's what is happening here in the book of Jeremiah. And so let's go to verse 31. O generation, see ye the word of Yah. I have been a wilderness unto Israel, a land of darkness. Wherefore say my people, we are lords, we will come no more unto thee. Are you with me? He's brought them into the land, and they're saying, we're all right now. You don't have to bother us. They don't even ask where he is. And so Yah now, in his amazement, is asking the question, can a maid forget her ornaments, or a bride her attire? Yet my people, he's asking the question, a bride who is about to get married, can she forget to wear her wedding garment? The chances are no. She's not going to forget. It's a big day for her. But Yah is saying, but my people, what have they done? They have forgotten me days without number. Not just one day, not just two. He said, you can't sum it up. They've forgotten me. Why trimmest thou thy way to seek love? Therefore hast thou also taught the wicked ones thy ways. Not only are you doing that, you're teaching other people to do the same thing that you're doing. Also in thy skirts is found the blood of the souls of the poor innocents. I have not found it by secret search, but upon all these. And so Yah is asking the question, you are my bride, but how have you forgotten? How have you forgotten to wear your wedding garment? How? How? So come with me to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 16. And he's reminding this maiden, because as I said, the maiden that we read in Song of Song is linked to the relationship. It's analogous to the relationship that Yeshua has with his people. Ezekiel chapter 16, I deck thee. I what? I deck thee with ornaments and put bracelets upon thy hands and a chain on thy neck. And I put jewel on thy foreheads and earrings in thine ears and a beautiful crown upon thy head. Thus was thou decked with gold and silver, and thy raiment was of fine linen, and silk and broidered work. Thou didst eat fine flour and honey and oil, and thou was exceeding beautiful, and thou didst prosper into a kingdom. And thy renown went forth among the heathens for thy beauty, for it was perfect through my comeliness, which I put upon thee, saith Yah Elohim. He's saying, on the day that we got married, I decked you out. I put all these jewels on you, earrings. But don't forget who is writing here. This is the wise man Solomon. And he's speaking to us in parables. And when you speak in parables, as we have studied, parables is meant for the wise and not for the simpleton. We've got to understand that. We're not knaves. And so in order to understand what I just read in Ezekiel, his bride, how he decked his bride and put jewels on them, you've got to come with me, I beg you, to the book of Mishli. That is the book of Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 1. And we will begin at verse 6. Proverbs 1. Well, let's start at verse 5 for context. The wise one hears and increases learning. Are you with me? Let me say that again. The wise person, the wise among us, they hear. Sometimes a person is listening to you, but they're not hearing you because listening is passive. But hearing is active. So when the word says, he that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says, he's saying it is what you do after hearing it. It is active, not passive. We've got to understand that. So he says, the wise one hears and increases learning. And the understanding one gets wise counsel. For understanding a proverbs and a figure, the words of the wise and their riddles. So he's speaking to us in riddles, in parables. And so we're going to use this Mishli, Proverbs, to explain what we just read in Ezekiel chapter 16. Verse 7. The fear of Yah is the beginning of what? Knowledge. So when a person say, I fear Yah, and you don't see any growth in knowledge, it's a bland claim. He says knowledge will increase. You cannot fear Yah and not know about him. So if we go back to the relationship that we saw unfolding in the Song of Songs, we saw two people in love. Two people in love. And they wanted to be with each other all the time. They spoke good things about each other. And that is intended to teach us what the relationship should be with Yah and his people. But verse 7, the last part of it says, fools. Who? Fools despise wisdom. The Hebrew word there is akma. Fools despise wisdom and discipline. Verse 8, my son, heed the discipline of your father, and do not forsake the Torah. Do not forsake the law. In your Bible, it probably says the law of your mother. Do not forsake the Torah, for they are fair wreath upon your head and chains around your neck. So the jewel, the chain that you saw that was put on the bride's neck in chapter 16 of Ezekiel, and the crown that was on, it says it's the Torah. You must wear the Torah like a chain around your neck. That's what he decked you out in. But, you know, perhaps a simpleton reading this would say, see, it's okay. But no, he's saying it is the Torah. He says, forsake not the Torah of your mother, for they are fair wreath. That's the crown we read about. On your head and chains about your neck. So when Yeshua came along and said, I broke the yoke that was in Egypt. I broke your yoke. And now he says, take my yoke upon you. because my yoke is light and the one you were carrying was heavy. He's talking about the Torah. Put the Torah around your neck and yoke yourself with it, through which knowledge will come. And that's the difference, we're told, between the wise virgin and the foolish one. Matthew 25. We better go there. Matthew chapter 25. It says in verse 30, and though the worthless servant out into the outer darkness, there shall be what? Weeping and gnashing of teeth. And when the Son of Adam comes, when the Messiah comes in his esteem, and all the set apart messengers with him, then he shall sit on the throne of his esteem, and all the nations shall be gathered before him, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd separates a sheep from his goats. We saw that in Song of Songs. Of all the daughters of Jerusalem, Solomon chose the Shumelite. He separates them. He said, this is my true love. And so Yeshua here is separating the sheep because he's not only king, but he's a shepherd. David said, he is my shepherd. I shall not want. He leadeth me, why? Not by rough waters, but by still waters. He restored my soul. Yea, what happened? Of course, he's a shepherd. And sometimes what we really need in a husband is not a kingly husband, he's a shepherd. It's good if he's a king and he's a shepherd, but this country, it's not a president that it needs a shepherd, because the sheep have all gone astray. We see that. There are no shepherds among the politicians today. They're all kingly, but there are no shepherd. The people need a shepherd. And so the word here is letting us know that when he comes, he will gather the people and he will separate them. And he will say to the sheep, come ye, blessed of my Father, come, inherit the kingdom that was prepared for you. When? Before I made you, I prepared a kingdom for you. And what he's trying to tell us, he's saying before a man gets married, he must prepare where he's going to live before he gets married. Are you with me? You don't get married, says he, in the kingdom, and you go and rent accommodation. That's not what he's saying. He said, I've gone to prepare a place for you, and where I am, you're going to be there, because the husband belongs with the wife, and the wife belongs with the husband. That's what he's saying. So he's going to say, come, inherit the kingdom. Come, my wife, because those on the right represents his wife in the kingdom made new. Come. But unto those on the left, the goats, he says, I never knew you. Are you with me? And so when you take this picture of the wise and the foolish virgins, you bring that now over to Matthew, in about chapter 27, and you see the Messiah there on a tree. He's on a tree. Some will tell you he was on a cross. The word says he was crucified on a tree. But he did carry the patibulum, the cross beam on his shoulders, which was nailed to the tree. The cross beam is not a cross in itself, but when it was put on the tree, it became a cross, a symbol of a cross. But what did you see there? He be in the middle, and on the right was a thief, and on the left was a thief. And so the one on the right, the thief, had salvation given to him on that day, who represents the wise, because he knew that he had sinned and he was a robber, but he said, I want salvation nevertheless, whereas the one on the left cursed him. And so what we're seeing here is that Yeshua wants us to know that our attitude to marriage is really not what it's supposed to be. And so then we have to look at who is it that fulfill all these things that is written as a king in Israel. Let's go back to the book of Samuel, and the people said to Samuel, "We want a king. We want a king." And Yah says, "You really don't need a king." They said, "We want a king like the other nations." And Yah said, the whole thing incensed Samuel to the extent where he got angry. He said, "Yah is your king." The people said, "No, we want a king." And then he tells them, if you were to get a king, this king, he would do all manner of things to you. He would. He would. And so I'm advising you not to get a king. So come with me to Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 7. Let's do 7, 1 to 3. Deuteronomy chapter 7, 1 to 3. And the word says, "When Yahuwah the Elohim shall bring you into the land which thou goest to possess it, and has cast out many nations before the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Evites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And when Yahuwah the Elohim shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them." Are you with me? "Nor show mercy unto them, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son." When you come into the land, those nations who are in there, whether they be in Gaza or not, don't mingle with them. It doesn't matter what the United Nations says. Drive them out. I'm quoting the word. Then come to Deuteronomy chapter 17 now. And let's begin at verse 14. "When thou art come into the land which Yah thy Elohim giveth thee, and shall possess it, and shall dwell therein, and shall say, I will set a king over me, like all the other nations that are about me, thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom Yah thy Elohim will choose. One from among thy brethren shall thou set king over thee. Thou mayst not set stranger over thee, which is not thy brother, but he shall not multiply horses." Are you with me? The king must not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt, to the end that he shall multiply horses. For as much as Yah hath said unto you, he shall henceforth return no more that way, neither shall he multiply wives. Did you get me? So Israel said, we want a king. Yah said, you mustn't have a king. They said, we want one like the other nations. Yah said, if you get a king, he's going to make things difficult for you. Now, the point I'm making is, the one who fulfilled all this was Solomon. He multiplied wives, 700 concubines. He had horses, and he was giving away the land. He gave land to Hiram. Yah said you shouldn't do that. That's the only king who did all that. And he was rich. Are you with me? Don't do that. And so you know the story very well in First Kings 12, that when Solomon died, his son Rehoboam took to the throne, and the people came to him and said, your father did all this to us. He did all that to us. Now what will you do? Lighten our load. And what did he say? He said, I'll make it worse than my father did. And then the people left him, and Jeroboam became the king of the 10 nations. The nation is divided just like the church. Why? Because of the hardness or the harshness of the leaders. There is no king in Israel. And I don't mean geographical Israel, because we read in Jeremiah 2 earlier that not even the pastors are asking, where is he? Where is he? And so before David died, he made sure that Solomon would build the temple. So you better come with me to 1 Chronicles chapter 28. It says, and David gave to Solomon his son the pattern of the porch. Remember, Moses got a pattern to build the tabernacle. Are you with me? And so David now has a pattern for the porch of the houses thereof, and of the treasures thereof, and of the upper chambers thereof, and of the inner parlors thereof, and of the place of the mercy seat, and the pattern of all that he had by the Spirit of the courts of the house of Yah, and of all the chambers round about, of the treasures of the house of Yah, and the treasuries of the dedicated things, also for the courses of the priests of Levites, and for all work of the service of the house of Yah, and for all the vessels of service in the house of Yah. So David had a pattern, even as Solomon had a pattern to build. And David gave it to his son Solomon. Isn't that what it says? And the word says, come with me to 1 Kings chapter 6. It says, and it came to pass in the 480th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year, Solomon reigned over Israel, in the month Ziph, which is the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of Yah. Are you with me? David told him to build a temple. Go and build it, and gave him the pattern. The word here says, Solomon began to build the temple in the 4th year of his reign. Why? Why did it take Solomon 4 years in his reign before he started building? It's like us, isn't it? We spend money on our homes, on our cars, and we do all our own duty, but we neglect the house of Yah. That's Solomon, the king shepherd. He made the life of the people very hard to the extent where they couldn't pay their bills. Come with me to 1 Kings 6, 37 and 38. In the 4th year was the foundation of the house of Yah laid. There it is. I'm emphasizing the point. The 4th year in the month of Ziph, and in the 11th year in the month of Bul, which is the 8th month, Chesvan, was the house finished. Did you get that? He started in the 4th year, and it finished in the 11th. Right? In the 11th year, in the month of Bull, which is the 8th month, Chesvan, that's the month it finished. You know what month that is? The 8th month in the Hebrew calendar. Was the house finished throughout all the parts thereof, and according to all the fashion of it, so was he 7 years in building it. But why did he take so long? Come with me to chapter 7, 1 Kings. He built also the house of the forest of Lebanon. The length thereof was 100 cubits, and the breadth thereof 50 cubits, and the height thereof 30 cubits, and upon the rows of the cedar valley, and the cedar beams upon the pillars. And he covered it. Solomon was building his own house, he's also building houses for his wives. So he did not have time to build Yah's house. This is why he warns us later on in Ecclesiastes, because when you are young and you're in love with somebody can drown out your love for Yah. Don't let that happen. Remember now your creator in the days of thy youth. Don't let your love for a man or your love for a woman cause you to neglect your love for your creator. That's what he's saying. He said, don't do what I did. I spent time building houses for my wives, 700 of them I had. And building my own house. I spent more time building my own house than I spent time building Yah's house. Don't do that, he says. Don't do that. And so these things, they are here for what? Our admonition. They're here for our admonition. If only we could see them. Because the word says here, that in 28, First Chronicles, it says, and for this reason of the levy which Solomon raised for to build the house of Yahweh and his house at Millo and the wall of Jerusalem and Azar and Megiddo and Giza, for Pharaoh, king of Egypt, had gone up and taken Giza and burned it to fire and slain the Canaanites that dwelt in the city. And so it was a time, a very, very busy time for Solomon. And he was busy doing things that took away his time from Yah. And Yah is saying, you shouldn't do that. So come with me back to Shirashirim, that's a Song of Songs, and we will look at chapter 5. It says, I have come to my garden, my sister, my bride. I have plucked my myrrh with my spice. I have eaten my honeycomb with my honey. I have drunk my wine with my milk. Eat, O friends, drink and drank deeply, O beloved ones. I was sleeping, but my heart was awake. She's dreaming. Are you with me? And she says, he knocks for me to open, my sister, my love, my dear. He comes. And so what you're dealing with here is where it talks about he's at the door in Revelation chapter 3. He's knocking. Whosoever, let me in. Whoever hear my knocking. And so he's knocking here. This king shepherd. What happens? Let's read it again. She says, I was sleeping, but my heart was awake. You know, when you're in love and you're in bed and your mind is just on the one that you've fallen in love with, and you can't let a moment slip by. That's where she's at. Right? the voice of my beloved. He knocks. Open for me, my sister, my love, my dove. My what? My dove. Understand that, because when you go back to the book of Genesis, you see that when after the rain had finished, Noah sent out a dove, and that dove returned unto Noah with what? With an olive leaf, meaning peace. That's why Solomon is the king of peace. And throughout his reign, there was no war in Jerusalem, just peace. So he is a forerunner to the king of peace, Yeshua, that Isaiah spoke about in chapter 9. He is the king of peace. That's when he comes, he rules in righteousness. There will be no war. If you war, you war against his wrath. So he knocks. Open for me, my sister, my love, my dove, my perfect one. For my head is drenched with dew, my locks with the drops of the night. He's outside now. He's in his country home, and he's come home, and he's knocking for her to come. Come out in the vineyard. It's harvest time. Come and let us reap the barley. Come. But what is she doing? I have washed my feet, she says. Should I dirty them? My beloved put his hand on the latch. He's trying to get in, and she won't let him in. My beloved put his hand by the latch, and my feelings were deeply moved for him. I rose up to open my beloved, and my hands dripped with myrrh, my fingers with flowing myrrh on the handles of the lock. I opened for my beloved, but my beloved had turned away and gone. When Yeshua stepped out of that temple, there will be nobody in there to make intercession for you anymore. He's gone. And he says in Revelation 22 and verse 11, who is filthy, let him be filthy still. And who is righteous, let him be righteous still. He steps out. He's no longer making intercession for us. He's walked out of that temple. He's been knocking at your door for years, and you would not listen to him. Now he's gone. Your probation is closed. Your probation is closed. And you wonder, what could it have been? What could it have been? So we think of that Shakespearean drama, don't we? Twelfth Night, you remember that? When the prince came and said, if music be the food of love, play on. And we like this. But you need a clear, pure mind to understand, because our Western minds will invoke crudeness into this. Because Adam and Eve had been naked in the garden, and there was no shame because they were covered by righteousness. And so when we read this, we need to understand the love of Yah. And what's interesting as you read it, not once did it mention the name Yah, like the book of Esther, but you see Yah's hand in it. It's love. So we got to this stage now where Yah married a young maiden called Israel. And that maiden somehow became something else. Something else. And Yah wants to send a message to his people, and the only way he could do that for them to get it is to dramatize the whole thing. So it now becomes analogous again. Right? Not an allegory, but analogous. So come with me to Hosea chapter 1. Because by this time, this maiden we call Israel is something else. the word of Yahweh that came to Hosea, son of Beri, in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, sovereigns of Yehuda, and in the days of Joab, son of Joash, sovereign of Yisrael. The beginning of the word of Yahweh with Hosea, and Yahweh said unto Hosea, we anglicize it and we say Hosea, go take a woman of whoring and children of whoring, for the land as utterly poured away from Yah. The question is, how could this maiden that we saw in the Song of Songs now become a prostitute? How? A woman of the night, a woman of ill repute. How could that happen? And so he wants his people to know what has happened. So he tells the prophet, go and marry a prostitute to dramatize the relationship that I have with Israel, so the whole people, the whole world will know what it's like. Now, when Yah speaks, because he's the king, you don't conjecture who is speaking. You know it's Yah because you're a prophet. And the word says that Hosea marries Gomer. That's what he says. So he went and took Gomer, daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son, and they called his name Yisrael or Jezreel. God is in this. Yah is in this. He's blessing this thing. That's how the marriage starts. Like all marriages, mostly, they start out well. Husband and wife are doing well. He opens door for her, both in the home and in the car. He goes shopping with her. He's a doting father. He's there at birthing classes. But somehow things change, don't they? A word says, and Yah said to him, call his name Jezreel, for in a little while I will avenge the blood. Something is coming. Trouble is coming into the home. I will avenge the bloodshed of Jezreel and the house of Jehu, and put an end to the reign of the house of Israel. And it shall be in that day that I shall break a bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel. And she conceived again and had a daughter, and called his name Lo-ru-amah, meaning mercy has left the home. The spirit is gone. When we got married, we were okay, but things are not the same way now. Trouble has hit the home. She no longer cooks, and she no longer washes for me. Trouble has hit the home. That honeymoon period is gone. That maiden is no longer a maiden. I thought she was a maiden when I married her. That's what he may well be thinking. And remember, he's a priest. And so the people in his assembly is saying, Pastor Hosea, what did you do? How could you marry that woman? The question is asked, how could Yah marry us? And the word says, she leaves the family home. She did what? She left the family home. And she conceived again, meaning that she went out to her old lovers in Jerusalem, and she became an adulteress. And she conceived outside the home, and she had another child called Lohemi. Lohemi means not mine. Not mine. Oh, yes, you are mine, but the clothes you're wearing is not mine. That's Babylonian garment. The food you're eating is not mine, but you are mine. Are you with me? Those words you spoke, those bitter, horrendous, horrible words you spoke when you got angry, they're not mine, but you are mine. And so Hosea is wondering what to do with this woman. Now, when we read here in Hosea and he says, go and marry an adulterous woman or a prostitute, it's logical to assume that when he married her, she was a prostitute. But the scripture doesn't say that. It may well be that Yah is speaking as one who knows the end from the beginning, and he knows that she would become a prostitute. It may well be that when he married her, she wasn't a prostitute. I'll throw that out for discussion. Are you with me? When Yah says that I am going to give you the land of promise, said that to Abraham, the people who inherited it were not even born. So he speaks sometimes as, well, always, as one who knows the end from the beginning, and sometimes we mix up the end with the beginning. So let's assume then, when he married her, she was a maiden. But she couldn't keep her oath intact. She couldn't do that. So she left the home, went out to her old lovers, and obviously Bishop Hosea, priest Hosea, is a man of integrity. He's a man of substance. And he has to do something about that because his congregation is concerned by the fact that he's married to a prostitute. She has gone out to her old lovers and she's prostituting herself. And he has to hold, or the people are holding him accountable. Pastor Hosea, what are you doing with a prostitute as your wife? Tell us. And so I cannot conceive that there would be a court in Jerusalem who would not give Pastor Hosea a divorce. Can you? He marries her. She knew that he was a priest when she married him. And she left the home, went out to her whole lovers, conceive a child called Lo-Ami that's not his. He doesn't need to take a paternity test. Because when he went down to the hospital and he looked at the child, he said, no, that's not an Hosea. Not mine. So he wants to put her away. Are you with me? Kind of makes sense in contemporary time, isn't it? But we're dealing with Yah here. We're dealing with Yah. And the word says, come with me to verse 21, chapter 2. And it shall be in that day that I answer, declare Yah, that I answer the heavens, and they answer the earth, and the earth answer the grain, and the new wine, and the oil, and they answer Yisrael. And I shall sow her for myself in the earth, and I shall have compassion on her who had not obtained compassion. And I shall say to those who were not my people, did you hear me? He said, I'm going to say to Lo-Ami, those who are conceived out of wedlock, I will call them my people. You are my people. You see who we're dealing with? He said, I know that you are illegitimate, even as King David was. David said, I was conceived in what? Iniquity. My mother conceived me. He wants you to know that he has sisters who are not the children of Jesse. That's what he spoke about in Psalm 51. So Yah says, those who are not mine, the day is coming when I'm going to make them mine. As they were increased, so they What? Israel sinned as it develops and increases. But Yah says he's going to make those people. So in chapter 3 now, then Yah said to me, what? Yah is now speaking to the priest Hosea. Yah knows that Gomer left the home, had a child that is not Hosea's child, and Hosea is a priest, and Hosea knows because Hosea read the biography of Samson. And he well knew that he ought not to marry Canaanites and all the other nations on that. He knew that. So when Yah said, go and do this, it was contrary to the logic that exists. But it was Yah who was speaking. Chapter 3. Then Yah said to me, go again, love a woman loved by a friend and an adulteress, according to the love of Yahweh for the children of Israel, though they are turning to other mighty ones and love their raisin cakes. Did you get that? Yah says, it isn't true you deserve a divorce, but go back and love a woman who is an adulteress. Go and love her. Don't take her to court. Don't do that. That's what the contemporary world wants you to do. Paul says, I dare you take this issue to court. And Hosea is saying, but yeah, I am a priest. How could you allow me to do that when the congregation, they are whispering about me? They're saying things behind my back that I have a wife who has gone down to Jerusalem and has prostituted herself, had a child, and now you're telling me to go and love her again. Yah is saying, Hosea, that's how I love Israel. That's how I love my people. They prostitute themselves with other gods and with other churches and with other doctrine. If only they could come home. Are you with me? Verse 2, chapter 3. So I bought her for myself for 15 pieces of silver and 1.5 homers of barley. Hosea is buying his own wife. Are you with me? What is it that I'm saying? Let's conclude this way. You remember on the day that Yeshua was crucified, they slapped him, spat in his face, and he himself cried out, my Father, why would you subject me to this kind of situation, this cruelty? For a people, for a woman, Israel, that has prostituted herself. Why? Yah said, like Hosea, you must bid on her and take her away from her old lovers, from the Syrians, from the Babylonians, from the Canaanites, from the Perizzite, from the Jebusite. Take her away and take her home and dress her up in fine linen and put that Torah, yoke it around her neck like a bracelet, like a chain. Do that, Hosea, because that's what I have to do. My Father, why hast thou forsaken me? But in the next breath, listen to him, into thine hand I commend my spirit. That's love that we cannot plumb. That's love. Love is a verb, not a word. If all you can do is speak, then you have not yet spoken. Oh no. Yeshua said, by their fruits you will know them. So as we look into the Song of Songs, let it be our song. Because the word in Revelation says, on that day when he comes, the people will sing a song that no other nation can sing, no other people, because it's born out of experience. May it be that the song that we will sing is born out of our love one for another. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen. Hallelujah.